Hello and welcome to the show. My name is David Gravelle and I'm Legacy Curious. We've got an exciting and informative show for you today. My closest friend, Mark Lucier, will be the podcast's very first legacy sharer. I'm looking forward to learning more about Mark, although I know many of the stories, I've lived them with him, but I'm curious as to some of the new tales he'll share and some of the new information I'll learn. Stick around, we're about to get started and we'll meet Mark and learn all about him. Thanks for joining us. Hello, Mark, and welcome to the show. It's great to see
It's good to be
you.
here.
Yeah. So,
It's nice to be with you.
well, yeah, thanks for doing this podcast. First off, just wanted to, show you my appreciation and thank you for being here. I think you understand kind of the impetus of the show and what I'm trying to do. What do you want to achieve today? Why did you agree to do this, and what are you hoping to share today?
Well, first, I thought if I can do anything to help you out, I'm there for you. That was the first thing.
Thank you.
Second thing is, I just thought this was a cool opportunity to do exactly what your whole idea is to just kind of leave a video message for future generations to look back on. And instead of just hearing stories, they can actually see me talking about specific things. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Great. Well, we're going to do our best to help you with that. So let's start by telling your audience a little bit of about you, about maybe the kind of life that you lived, and I'll start by telling them, your full name, Mark Christopher Lucier, and for everyone that's watching and listening out there, Mark's one of my favorite people, on the planet, and one of my closest friend, if not my closest friend. He was born June 17th, 1966, in our hometown, Windsor, Ontario. And from there, Mark, tell me, about your family. Start there.
All right. So growing up, I was the youngest of four boys. I had twin older brothers, and then another brother, and then 2 years later was me. And it was just the four of us moving through life with our mom and dad. And then when I was in grade 8, my mom told me I was going to be an older brother, which slightly confused me. And I'm like, if I'm going to be an older brother, that means there's going to be someone younger. What? And then came Tom. So now there's 5 boys in our family. And but most of my childhood was just, again, because he came along when I was in grade 8. Most of my memories as a kid were me and my 3 brothers. My mom and dad were very athletic. So a lot of the things that we did, sorry, let me say that again. So a lot of the things that we did growing up had to do with sports. So we would go tobogganing, we'd play hockey out front, we'd play baseball, play with a frisbee, go to the school and play strikeout, play kickback. In the neighborhood back in those days, kids were just told, go outside and play. So we would go outside and play army tag, kick the can, all the games that, my dad taught us. And we'd play with those all with the kids in the neighborhood. And I was just one of the guys. I wasn't like, oh, well, here's the little kid. I was just fully accepted as one of them. And I absolutely loved it. It was a great childhood. We are like a middle-class family. I never felt like I did without anything. When they came out with their very first video game called Pong, my dad bought it for us. And we didn't have like a lot of disposable cash, but he knew, oh my God, my kids would love this. And we did. We absolutely, you look back at how basic that thing was, but at the time it was the cutting edge. So I had a very, very happy childhood.
Yeah. So
Growing
tell
up.
us a bit about your mom. Tell us your mom's name and maybe a bit about her family. Where
Okay,
is her
so
family
my
always
mom,
from Windsor?
yeah, so my mom's name is Linda. She, when I would ask her growing up, like what her heritage was, she was never really 100% sure. She said, well, there's some German, there's some Irish, there's some Scottish, and some other European stuff. Her mom and dad, I remember when we would visit them, they seemed very harsh, like not deeply loving, kind of people, like nice to us, but you could just tell that father daughter bond or the mother daughter bond, it just didn't really seem to be much of a thing. Uh, and when she was growing up, they basically, her dad one day, I think she was 14, and he told her, don't come home until you have a job. Go get a job. If you can't find one, find somewhere else to stay. At 14.
Wow.
So she went down to a place called Kresge's on Olette and was like, hi, can I get a job here? And they're like, well, you have to be at least 16. And so she explained the story, and they hired her. And she was doing that part-time while she was going to school. And then her typing speed was incredible. And then she went from when she was 16, she skipped 2 grades in school. She was on the senior teams when she wasn't even old enough to be on the junior teams, probably, or just barely. She was on the Canadian women's national basketball team when she was in high school or university, one of the two, which is insane to me.
Wow.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But then she got a job as a legal secretary straight out of high school. And then she was doing that for many years. And she knew more than the lawyer did when it came time to drafting stuff, because she was the one that was typing all the things up. And so he'd just say, oh, I need another one of those. Make it similar to that one, but change this if you can. And so that's what she did my whole life growing up. My dad, he grew up in a family of 5 kids. He was going to the same high school where I met you, which is Assumption. And he left high school to join the U.S. military because his dad had dual citizenship. So he joined the Air Force. He was a military police.
Wow.
And found out that he was always sending money back to his mom to help with bills and stuff. And she appreciated it. But what she did was she saved it all. Never told him. And then when he came home, she gave him this lump sum of money that he had been sending her. And he ended up being able to use that when he married my mom while he was still in the Air Force. So that was kind of cool. I've heard many stories about my dad's athletic prowess as well. In the military, he was on their hockey team that would travel around other bases and play against other teams. And at the base where he was, the U.S. Olympic coach was their coach. And he was very impressed with my dad. And he said, first, if you were fully American would be awesome. But he said that if he was just bigger, he was good enough to be on the Olympic team. Wow. And my dad was a small guy. He was like 5'8", maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 5'6", 5'8", somewhere around there.
Right.
He had gray hair when he was 19. So to me, growing up, my dad was always this old man.
Right, right.
But he had me when he was, I think, 20, roughly 20, 21, somewhere around there. And so all through grade school, growing up, you're like, okay, he's an old man. And then I remember coming home in grade 8. I'm like, Dad, I won the 100-meter dash again. Yeah, I'm the fastest kid. And he's like, I'd whoop you. And I'm like, dream on, Gramps. Seriously. So he's like, okay, let's go outside and race. I'm like, okay. So I go outside and he destroyed me. And as a kid, I just could not fathom how that happened.
Yes, right.
And you look back and you go, okay, so how old would he have been? I was 13, so he was probably 33. So he was still young, still not fully in his prime, but he was still young and athletic enough to whoop my little hiney. But yeah, so that was kind of humbling. But yeah, he would come outside. He would be like the quarterback. We'd play 2-on-2 football and all kinds of things. And yeah, nothing but positive memories growing up as a kid. Yeah.
So tell me about your volleyball journey. That's how we met, and it's one of the kind of connecting tissue of our friendship through the years is being able to play together, socialize around that. Tell me, why you picked it, where it's taken you, why you still find enjoyment.
Okay, so it started when I was in grade 5. When I was in grade 5, I was playing for our grade school team. I played all through grade school. Then when I was in high school, in grade 9, I played on the junior team. And there were some grade 10 kids that were kind of ticked off that I was the captain, but it wasn't my choice. The coach made me the captain. And then in grade 10, I actually played for the senior team, which I absolutely was not expecting to have happen. I didn't even try out, basically. That's an interesting story, but I won't bore you with that now. Yes, so I ended up being on the senior team in grade 10, and I played grade 10, grade 11, and then when I was in grade 12, you were playing on the team because you were now in 11, and we met and had a lot of fun together. After volleyball season, we hung out and became friends that year, basically. And our team we went undefeated, but except for 2 losses to a team called Kennedy, which I'm sure you'll remember. And then we met them in the city finals, and we pounded them, and we were the city champs.
That was our first
And the
city
next year,
championship together. That was your first city championship too, and probably our
it
school hadn't
was
won in a long time. Yeah.
yeah, Assumption hadn't won anything, and not that I ever remembered up until that point. It'd be interesting to look and see. And then the next year, we had our whole starting 6 back. We had a couple people leave, but they were on our second string. And the second year, we did go undefeated. And in the finals, we met Kennedy. And Kennedy was the same as us the year before. They won all their games except their 2 to us, they lost. And we met them in the finals, and we beat them again. So, yeah. And the thing I think that really hooked me into the volleyball at that time was one of our coaches, his name was Lou Bordelin. And he was such a nice guy. And the other coach didn't really seem to know a lot of stuff. He would tell us things that were just wrong. And I was smart enough to go, yeah, that's not right. And I would go to Bordelin. I'm like, Coach, he told me in this game to do no back sets. Like, we're in the semifinals. Like, I got to mix it up. Like, I can't just always set the same guy like he's telling me. And he just looked at me and went, yeah, you do what you need to do, but don't tell him I told you. I was like, okay, cool. So I mixed it up, and we did the same as always. We had really good hitters. Ray, another friend of ours, was another setter. We ran a 6-2, it's called. And it was just such an awesome team. Everybody worked together, played together. And with Lou Bordelin, he just made me love volleyball. When he made me on the senior team in grade 10, that just, I don't know what it was about that. But then after that, then I went to Centennial, and you went to Centennial as well. And that year, the craziest thing happened. That year, we played seniors again. I was in grade what I call 13 and a half. And after our season was done, while I was a senior at that school, I coached the junior girls team at that school. Did you know that I did that?
I forgot that
Oh,
if I did know.
yeah. So that's when I started coaching. I started coaching while I was a high school student, coaching the junior girls
Well,
team.
we coached our own team practically, our high school team, because that coach didn't know as much, and we were like, I mean, we thought we were the best because we'd won the last 2 city championships, and we were kind of
Yeah.
full of ourselves,
We were the
and
ringers
so
coming in.
we were the ringers, yeah, and we garnished a lot of attention. I remember that too, is that
Yeah.
the school for the first time had, and the last time, because that school closed that year was last year was
Yeah.
it was a public school. It opened as a Catholic school the next year.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the first time that volleyball was a thing there. And yeah, there were some good players, but nothing like we were used to.
No, no. We had a solid 4, I would say, with Andy Johnson and Steve Diakowski.
Steve Dykowski and Andy Johnson, right?
Yeah, and then the other setter, he was not good. You'd go, dude, that was a great back set, and you'd go, I was trying to push it out to him. It went off the back of my head.
It's
Well, whatever, dude, it was great.
literal
Thanks.
quote, literal quote. Yeah.
Yeah, and then after that, like we played, like you and I were like this
No, you did
unstoppable.
at the university. Well, we played on the beach. I don't want to take away your summer beach stories, but I do want you to talk about, being on the inaugural team for the University of Windsor, and basically starting that franchise. Um, because you played with your brother, and I don't want to take your story away. In a league with other university athletes before it was a sanctioned team, and basically the success you had there earned us a right to get a team. So tell us about.
Well, it's kind of bittersweet. So that year, they ended up having an A team and a B team, and they told me I could be on the A team, but they were running a 5-1, and I would be the second setter and be on the bench. My brother Rod would be the main setter, or I could be the captain of the B team. And I was like, yeah, I want to play, so I'll be on the B team. Let's do that. And so I did. And the coach was very easygoing. He was like, oh, just call me Gary. Don't call me coach. It's just Gary. It's like, okay, which to me seemed odd from all the coaching or playing I had ever done. It was always Mr. LaRock, Mr. Bordelin, whatever. He didn't want us calling him by his last name. So, okay, whatever. But we played. We did really, really well. I got along great with him. And then now the next year, it was okay. Now the University of Windsor has won the opportunity or earned the opportunity to have a team. So I went out for it, and he was one of the coaches. Him and another woman, Linda Rock, I believe her name was. And you were there. We were there trying out together, and there was a bunch of other people. And I remember on one of the first days, just doing volleying with random partners. And the guy that I was with literally came up to me and he said, look, I know I'm not going to make the team. I just wanted to try. If there's anything you can do to help me, like give me pointers, I'd appreciate it. So I was like, oh, okay. Because by this point I'd coached high school, junior boys, senior boys, 2 senior boys teams, the junior girls. Anyways, so I'm now giving this guy some pointers. I'm like, oh, you want to do this with your fingers? You want to do, because for people that don't know, I was a setter, which is you're constantly volleying the ball. And Coach Semenik, that now he insisted being called, and never call me Gary. My name's Coach Semenik. Call me just that. And he just kind of got full of himself, and he came over and he reamed me out for helping this guy. You're not the coach of this team. I'm like, well, he just asked me. I'm not trying to take your job. Okay, whatever.
No, I can tell that he was, feeling threatened by you, of course, and he was, again, like you said, it was the first time we had a team, so he's feeling pretty proud of that and feeling like he had a lot to do with that, and at the same time, trying to find his way, and he was over his head, frankly. I mean, we knew that. We knew he wasn't a good coach. He wasn't leading us in
Yeah,
the way that we needed to. We were men by then. We weren't kids, and
right.
he never coached at this level, let alone knew what to do. No experience, you know.
No, and when we played in high school, we had set plays. Like number 1, that was a strong X. 2 was a weak X. 3 was a tandem. And then each spot had its own number. So if you're going to run the X and set the guy in the middle, that's play 1, setting position 2. So I would kind of look at the group and I'd go, okay, this is the play that we're running.
Yeah.
And our high school coach trusted us as setters to run the offense. So we would look at the other team and go, okay, they've got their shortest guy over there. My tallest hitter's in the middle, so I'm going to run an X to make him go outside and pound it over their short guy. Let's run this play. And so I did that my whole volleyball career and loved it. Loved being like the floor captain and doing all that stuff. And modifying plays, like with you specifically, I clearly remember saying, okay, we're going to do this play. And I'd look at you and I'd go, okay, but don't come in front of me. Come right behind me. Come right on my butt. I'm going to put a quick right behind me. And you'd go, okay. And so we would tweak them and modify them and catch teams off guard. And I love that stuff. And so now we're playing for the university at the practices. And after, I think it was 2 weeks, he had a sit-down conference with everybody individually. And so for me, he's like, okay, you're setting, fantastic. You're passing, amazing. You're serving, fantastic. Like everything was just top, 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 top. And then he said, attitude, yeah, it's horrible. And I was literally like, how's my attitude horrible? just because I'm not calling you by a name. I just flat out refused from how he drilled it into us. It's Gary. It's just Gary. It's Gary. To now, it's Semenik. It's Coach Semenik. Call me Coach Semenik. If you call me this, you're doing laps. It was like, okay. So I just wouldn't call him anything. I would just be there and I'd be like, hey, are we going to do this drill? Or, hey, do you want me to go get that for you? Or instead of saying coach. And he really took that to heart. And apparently that made my attitude horrible. And I remember talking to you, and you had similar to me, where everything was off the charts. And for yours, your attitude wasn't apparently as bad as mine. And I remember talking to you, and you're like, "So what are you going to do?" I was like, "I'm not doing anything different." Like I was the captain of his freaking team. He knows what I bring to the table.
With him, that was the difference. I just showed up to play. I knew him only that way. Like, he introduced himself to me, and I know that I didn't struggle with any of that. I had lots of other things I was struggling with, but not that.
Yeah. So the next week or whatever the hell it was, I just still did the same thing, and I know I was playing well. I did a really good job, and the guys there were people that we had played with in the past. So, and they were friends of ours, a lot of them. And next thing you know, okay, here's the team posted, and I got cut.
Yeah.
And you were made the team captain.
Dude, it was.
And I was like,
it was one of the hardest
first of all,
times of
I was
my
very
life.
proud. I was very proud that you were the team captain. I'd never held anything against you for that. But I was like, I'm cut because I didn't kiss your ass? Really? Okay. And I remember being in the stands so it was in like September or October when that happened. So this would have been like November, early December. I was up in the stands watching, and tall Ed, I don't know if you remember him, he was a ref. He had a bald spot, gray hair, beard. He's sitting next to me in the stands, and he looks over and he goes, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Oh, I'm here to watch him play." He said, "Oh, why didn't you try out? Man, they could use you. Their centers are horrible."
Right.
I was like, "Dude, I tried out. I got cut." And he literally went, "You got cut." Because he refed our games. He even knew what I brought to the Exactly. I was like, yeah. So I summarized and told him kind of briefly what happened. He was just like, oh my God. So I was watching and wishing for the best, but the sets were not good. So there was virtually like no offense. The setters couldn't, or the hitters couldn't do much because the sets just weren't where they were supposed to be.
We were a terrible passing team, first off. So you got to be a good setter to fix broken passes. And you could have done that, but our setter didn't have that. They didn't have that skill. And so, plus we were first year team against players that were playing at, third, fourth, fifth year, for opposing teams. So we were never gonna do well, So the deck was stacked against us, and to not have our best setter available. But like, how did that change? How did you come back?
So you came to me during the Christmas break, and you said, Coach Semenik came and he told me to ask you to come back and try out for the team again for the second half of the season. And I remember looking at you going, I looked at you, I was like, I'm not trying out. He knows what I'm like. If he wants me on the team, I'm on the team. But I'm not trying out. And you're like, come on, dude, just please, I need you. I need a setter. Please.
Exactly.
And I'm like, dude, I would love to be back, but I'm not kissing his ass. I'm still not going to kiss his ass. So no, I'm not trying out. But if he wants me, I'm there. And you're like, okay, fine. And then after the next practice, you called me and you're like, dude, you're on the team. And I'm like, yeah. So you give me all the plays that they had. I think they had 5 plays, I'm guessing. And it was basically the same thing: weak X, strong X, a tandem, and
that's all he could do. That's all he knew.
Maybe 2 that had a slight wrinkle to them.
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, you got to memorize.
With the back row attack. Maybe that was the only difference.
Oh, maybe. Okay.
And it wasn't a big thing back then.
No. And so you're like, okay, so you got to memorize like all the plays and the positions, and I'm like, okay, that's not a big deal. It's very similar to the ones we did in high school. It's just different order, and okay, no problem, I'm good. And then I went to practice, and the first practice, a guy comes in, I give him a perfect meter set, and he's late. And he's like, you need to get him higher. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, you got to set it 2 meters. I was like, no, because then that would be a 2-meter set. I'm setting meters. Get your ass in here. And so it took a couple of days, but then, and same thing for quicks. People were hitting quicks like they're meter sets, 1.5-meter sets. But after just a bit, people now got it. They knew, yep, okay, here's my timing. Oh, and what I found out, you had told me, was what the coach did. Well, you tell the people, how did the coach pick his setters once he cut me?
I forget. You remember.
Okay. You told me he picked the 2 shortest people on the team and said, you're going to be our setters. That's how
right.
he got.
Sounds
how he picked
right.
the setter. Oh my God. So now I've been at practice. We've been running the sets. Everybody knows what they're doing. We've run a couple plays. Everything's cool. Now we're going to play at Brock, I think. It was Brock or Guelph, one of those. And so we're on a bus, and we're driving, and we're almost there. And then you drop a bombshell on me, which was, hey, just so you know, Coach Rock calls all the plays. I was like, yeah, that's funny. That's funny. And you're like, no, she calls the plays. She calls the plays,
yeah.
I'm like, what are you talking about? You're like, yeah, you look over at her and she'll have her clipboard up and she'll go like 21. I'm like, no, that can't be. You're like, yeah, that's how it's been. I'm like, oh my God. So now I'm going to be playing and I can't even run the offense. And I think you withheld that purposefully.
Yeah, I think she thought she was helping because the other setters might not have known or what to do. And so plus she's got to feel useful, I think was what it was. She had to feel like she was important and had to put her stamp on the game or something.
But the other thing that she did was, I remember at practices, she would play on defense, thinking she was as good as these guys, and they're drilling them at her. And she's trying to dig like these hits.
I do remember that. She wanted to play with us.
And we'd be playing 6-on-6, and she'd like sub, and she would go in, and it's like, okay, well, what the hell are you doing here? So yeah, I think she had something that she was trying to prove to herself or to other people or whatever.
Yeah, well, all that. Plus, it was their first time, so you got to make your mistakes. Yeah. We were the ones that were making their mistakes on.
That's true.
But they didn't last because they were gone the next season. They got fired, right? And they didn't last. Next season, we had new coaches.
Yeah.
And they kind of just broke the program for a while because of that. Those two just like set us off on the wrong foot.
Oh, for sure. Like it was nice of them to do it, to start the program the year before with the 2 men's teams to get us to qualify, which was awesome. And Gary Semenuk, him and his wife started Whamville, which is the world's largest volleyball league, I believe, in the world.
Yeah.
In Windsor.
Recreation.
So they were known for volleyball.
Yeah.
But
that was part of their hubris, though, is that was part of their hubris. They thought they were so important because of that they expected us to just do whatever they said and listen to, instead of consulting with us, who were, again, we were used to running programs. So it was both sides who were just not having it.
Yeah.
We wanted to run the show because we were successful at running the show. We were state champs and had never not been the most knowledgeable on a court. We've never had coaches that knew more than us, and these people didn't. So if they knew more than us, I'm sure we would have behaved differently. But frankly, they didn't.
Of course. Yeah, like of course, if it was somebody new and we got there and the guy was like, "Hi, my name's Coach Jim," I'd be like, "Hey, Coach Jim, how you doing?" And that's what I would call him all the time. It was because of what he had done before, and now he just flipped the script and became this new person that was all ego. That drove me crazy.
So that was
let me just finish that story quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So now we're out on the court and we warmed up and now we're playing. And I look over and she's like, 21. And I'm looking and going, okay, so you're running a play where you're having our shortest guy hit over their tallest guy. Okay. I set him, blocked. Okay, what's the next play? So I did probably the first 3 or 4 plays that she called, and guys got stoned every single time. And then I look over and she's like, 32. And I'm like, okay. And I look at our team and I'm like, 11. We're doing 11. But my back would be to her on the bench. So we run play 11, bam, we get a point. And Coach Semenuk, who doesn't know what she's calling, all he knows is she's calling the plays. He's like, great play, Lucier. It's like, okay, thanks, Coach. And for the entire rest of the game, I would look at her and she'd be glaring at me going, 22. And I'd go, okay. And I'd look like in high school and I'd assess what's our best option. Okay, our best option is 31. 31. That's what we're 31. And the same, I remember clearly saying to you, same thing, going, okay, but Dave, I'm gonna give you this quick right behind me. So come right on my ass. And you're like, okay, boom. And it would hit it. So we won. The first game we won. And it was the first game that the senior boy or the university team won out of all their matches.
Right, right.
Every school they went to is best out of 5, and they lost 3 straight. So here we are. We've now won our very first game. And I'm like geeked. All of our friends are totally like, yeah, let's go. And the team's huddling, and Coach Semenuk goes off with Linda. And then he comes back and he goes, Mark, come here for a second. I'm like, okay. So he pulls me way off to the side. And he goes, Coach Rock just told me that you're not calling the plays that she's telling you to call. Is that true? And I went, yeah. And he's like, why aren't you doing the plays that she's calling? I said, because she has no clue what she's doing. The first 4 plays she called, and I kind of like told him, had so-and-so hitting over their power hitter, and then had so-and-so doing this. And I said it made no sense. So then I did like I did when we played on the B team. I called plays that made sense. And look, it worked. He kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, stay here, I'll be back. So he leaves me. The team's still celebrating on the court. He goes and he's talking with her off to the side. Then he comes back to me and he goes, okay, if I put you back on, are you going to do the plays that she tells you to run? And I just looked at him and I said, no, because she doesn't know what she's doing. And he said, well, I can't put you back on if you're not going to do the plays that she's telling you to do. I was like, well, I guess I'm not going on then, because I'm not doing those plays. They didn't work. He's like, okay. So now we all walk back to the team huddle. He's like, okay, guys, good job out there. Good job. Okay, we're just gonna make one change. We're gonna have Jim is gonna come in and set for Mark. And literally everyone's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, everything will be fine. Don't worry about it. We're just making this one change. And I sat on the bench, and you lost the next 3. Game over. Went in the change room. I changed. And on the way out, I walked by him and I handed him the jersey. And I said, Coach, it's been fun. And that was my university experience. Was that one game that I played.
Yeah.
I really wish it would have been different.
Yeah.
It could have been so much better. It could have been like years of us playing together and building a team and a legacy. And but no, I was not.
We did off those courts. Like that's part of, again, what I liked about you is that, it wasn't just that one area where we could compete and excel. Like we could play on the beach. We played in other areas. We still continue to play. It was, something was taken from us there for sure. I feel like a victim, but at the same time, I think it taught me a lesson too, right? Is that sometimes you're up against the bureaucracy to the point where, you've got to just say like you did. Like I was proud of what you did to just stand your ground and be you in those moments and not, you know, lie to yourself and the rest of us that you were going to do what you were told when you knew it was wrong. So, some of the good stories, let's segue to that on the beach. What are some fun memories of volleyball for traveling on the
Oh
beach?
my,
What are some of the trips? Like, I know we had some high school trips that kind of set the stage for us, right? I'm going to mention that Guelph trip
yeah.
where was the first time in my life that I was away without my parents or adults chaperoning me, uh, and on a sporting event like competing. And I had been on multiple ones. For me, baseball was the traveling that I had done, not necessarily hockey, but baseball terms. But to be with you and Ray Louie and and
Oh
then we
my.
had other people, and just the mischief we got up to and the fun we had just being kids. So I don't know if you want to tell that story, tell it. Otherwise, tell me some others where we had
Okay,
good
no,
times
sure.
that you
Yeah.
remember.
So before I do that, there's two other stories I want to tell that tie directly to you that are two of my favorites that I still tell to this day. Just last weekend, I told one of the stories to somebody. Is There was one play where we had such a bond, like you and I. If I said, "Hey, let's switch this up and do this," you'd be like, "Okay." And there'd be times where you would say, "Hey, how about we do this?" And I'd go, "Yeah, okay, let's do that." And it was like we could read each other's minds and knew where you were and whatever. And dude, you were like such a hitting force and blocking force. And to set you and see you just crush balls, it was like, oh my God, that was awesome. And to be able to be part of that was amazing. But there was one play where I remember you were at the net and it's like free ball. So peel off the net, you go back to the attack line. They either volleyed it and it hit the net and started to drop, or they just tipped it over. I don't remember that part of it. And you kind of turn around and it's like, oh my God. And you dove flat out and bumped it straight up. And it went maybe 2 feet over my head. And I'm like, okay, I just told him if we have a free ball, I'm going to give him a quick in the middle. But that's clearly not going to happen.
He's lying on the ground right now.
And you're laying on the ground and you bumped it up. And as it's coming to my hands, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to just push this high outside to somebody else. You just said, I'm there, babe. And I'm like, okay, he says he's going to be there, but he's laying on the ground, but okay. And I set a quick, and I don't even know how the hell you did it. From laying flat out on the ground, arms in front of you after passing the ball, got up, sprang up, and pounded it for the point. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember that too. It was one of the happiest moments I've had, playing that year. And I think that was a centennial year because from what I remember, it played out just like you said.
I think you're
It dribbled over the net somehow, and I was, retreating on this free ball, and I went and got it, and I was thinking the whole time, I'm going to get cheated out of this quick that I was promised. I was promised the chance to smash this ball, and now, because that was another one of our mantras, was set me. And that started like
right.
real early in our career, was set me. I just look at you and set me. I just like
Yeah.
set me because I'd
Yeah.
be
Okay, we need a
frustrated.
point.
Yeah,
We
we'd
need
be
a point. I've
playing.
been moving it around. Dave, get ready.
Yeah, there'd be six of us on the court and there's only one ball, and I wasn't getting enough action for my satisfaction. And so that would be what I would say to you. Others did too. I mean, that was just something we would say, set me. And this time, that's exactly what happens. It's like, I'm there, babe. I'm like, I didn't know what to say in that moment except that. I didn't know what I was just, I didn't know what, Mark, I'm going to make it. Like, I couldn't think to say a complete sentence like that.
Yeah.
And it just,
Yeah, it was just an
that
in
was
the
it.
moment, and you were probably laying there thinking, he's not going to send me this.
That's what I thought. I'm like, he's not
And
going to
it's like,
trust me
he's
on
go,
this.
I'm
Like,
there, babe. And I'm like, okay, so he's going to be there. Here you go. Let's see. Oh my God.
yeah, and I was, yes. As I was getting up, I'm like, that ball is going to be there. I know I'm going to be there, but that ball's going to be there.
And the other team will not expect this.
No way, no way. I'm lying down on the ground. And, how is
Yeah.
that guy hitting it?
Yeah. And then my other favorite memory was, so for people that
Well,
are
wait, just on
watching
that
there,
one, just to wrap that up, you wrote a paper on that too. You wrote a little English essay on that or something in class. You've
I
got to
did.
remember
I
that.
forgot about that.
Yeah, you wrote that because I remember that we were so happy about that play that because it was both of us. Like, frankly, you were the one that put the ball where I needed it to be, and so surprised that I was able to do it that you wanted to tell that story. And I remember, I don't know what you got on it, but I remember you doing it and fascinating.
Yeah, dude, I totally forgot about that till you just said that. Wow. Yeah, that's very cool. That's very cool.
All right, next story.
Okay, so the other one is in volleyball when you're setting, you usually are volleying it like high and it comes down on an arc like that, and then someone times it and comes and pounds it. Or you can set one that's like short or medium height. And then there's ones that are called shoot sets, where you kind of the trajectory is more up and over this way instead of high and out. It's more on a lower trajectory. So we had the lollipop, we called it. I don't know where the hell that came from. It was kind of like a low looper. And then we had a shoot set, which was more of a straighter one. But then you and I only came up with what we called the Challenger, which was a shoot set on steroids. So normally, the whole reason you do a shoot set is you have a middle blocker and an outside blocker, and if you can get the ball here on a low, quick trajectory, the middle guy doesn't have a prayer of being able to get there to help on the block. And so the harder you send it, the less likely that guy's going to be able to get over there. And your timing on shoot sets was fantastic. You would turn your body and just pound it into the court. And it was just over time, I would just be like, okay, let me send it harder. Let me send it harder. Let me send it a little harder, a little lower, a little harder.
That's right. It was
And then we
always a
just
challenge to see how fast you could get it to me. And I was trying to beat
yeah,
the outside blocker on those instead of, I knew the middle guy was never going to get there, but the outside blocker I wanted to beat because I wanted to be up in the air before he even jumped to block and then have you find me while I'm still up in the air. So that's why
yeah,
we kept practicing to get faster and faster.
yeah. So we developed the Challenger, which was, it wasn't a set. It was like a chest pass in basketball. It was like the ball would come and I'd
That was it.
step into it with my full body, and it was just a laser. And dude, if you just jumped up and stood and held your hand there, if you just jumped up like this, I pushed it hard enough that it would have gone off your hand and down and in for a point. That's how like, but you instead would take a full-on swing, which was the whole point, and it's like hitting a home run off of a fastball. Like that ball just goes forever, and you would just crush these balls, and the other team would have no clue what the hell just even happened, because the ball from my hands, it was like timing it like a quick in the middle. It's like as I'm volleying it, you're jumping. So you would be approaching, you would be jumping, and I'm just sending a laser beam up there, and you're just swinging full speed, then crushing it. And I absolutely love doing that. And so our signal was, I'd give you the shoot set signal. And then if we were going to do it, I would go throttle up. And if you wanted to do it, you'd go on throttle up. It's like, okay, here we go.
Remember, because that's what they said when the Challenger exploded.
Yes.
Was that was the last radio communication was throttle up,
right.
Throttle up.
Yeah. And so we were at Riverside. And so we did one of those, and I'm like, okay, perfect pass. And you forgot.
Yeah.
And I hit the ref in the chest. And back then, the ref stood on, it was about that big piece of wood on the stand. I drilled this guy right in the chest, almost knocked him off the stand. And they had maybe 15 fans in the gym, if that. And he grabs the pole and he's looking at me, he's like, point over here. And I'm like, what the shit? Like, to everybody, they're thinking, what the hell did that guy just do? And I'm looking over at you, and you're like, oh, sorry, man, I forgot.
Like, that wasn't the only time. I remember another time the same thing happened. I was like, oh, I didn't think you were going to set me. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I didn't think you were going to set me. The pass wasn't very good, or...
Yeah, but luckily in the second game at the same school, we ran the exact same play, and this time it worked out the way it was supposed to. Good pass, And our team had phenomenal passing most of the time. That Assumption team, we passed well. And I sent you this laser, and you just absolutely crushed it. And I was like, thank God, at least now the crowd knows what was supposed to happen on the other one. Instead of thinking, what the hell is that guy doing? What was that? But yeah, I have so many fond memories of just volleyball in general. And with you in particular, like those are just a couple of those examples. Like you were saying, that whole Guelph co-ed trip where
coming of age
board.
story, frankly, right? Like,
Oh my God, for sure.
Yeah.
The high school coach basically came to me and he was like, "Hey, there's a mixed tournament at University of Guelph, and they sent it out to all the schools, and they said, if you want to do it, do it. But I thought if anybody would be interested in doing this, it'd be you." So he just gave me the form. I'm like, "Oh my God, yeah." So I immediately went to you. You're like, "I'm in." I went to Ray. He's like, "I'm in." It was like, okay, who are we going to get for girls? And it's a tournament, an all-day tournament, and we knew we don't want to sit off. So we're getting 6 people. We're not having extras where someone will have to sit off. Everyone's playing the whole game every game.
Right.
So,
right.
So then we had to get 3 girls, and we got Kathy St. Dennis.
Yeah.
Lori Cadju.
Lori Cadju, yeah.
And then we were watching our girl playing against Brennan, and there's this girl who's tall, and dude, she was the only girl back in the day that actually jumped up and hit the ball downward. Because other than that, her, it was all down balls. Like they'd hit it and it'd go up and over, up and over. She was, yeah, and she like would you say she was about your height?
I forget. Sure, she was
close.
Tall, maybe. Yeah, 6 feet tall.
She was very tall for a girl and athletic, and so then Ray and I just kind of walked up. He's like, "Hey, let's ask her to play." And I'm like, "Dude, do you know her?" He's like, "No." Like, okay, sure,
classic.
Let's go out.
Ray, Ray.
So we went up.
Ray. Yeah, it didn't have to make sense to anybody.
And she knew Kathy St. Dennis. And she's like, "Oh, Kathy's playing? Oh, yeah, I'll play. Sure." Right. It was like, "Oh my God, awesome." So and then this is an interesting story. The whole, how did we get there? Well, Dennis Millette, a teacher at our school, which this would never happen nowadays, a teacher at our school said, "You can use my van. I'll just let you use my van. Take my van with these other high school students and drive to another city. I'm good with that." It was like, oh my God. So we started doing practices and practicing plays. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to call them and tell them we're ready. Because I didn't understand at the time. I had never applied for a tournament. I'm a high school student.
Right.
And so I called the number. Exactly. I'm grade 13.
You were in grade 12. It was the end of grade 12 for you, end of grade 11 for me. Yeah. Okay. It was like a spring tournament or something.
Yeah. And so I called the woman and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, it's all booked up. We have like 16 teams."
How disappointed I was when I heard you tell me that.
I'm like, "No, are you kidding me?" She's like, "Yeah, we sent that out a while ago." Blah, blah. I was like, "Oh, I just got it like a week ago, and got our team together. We've been running practices. We've got all these plays. Oh my God!" And so I talked to her for probably about 20 minutes.
Right.
And she was like, "Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
But I'll add it to the list." It was like, okay. And then I told you guys, and it was like, "Oh, that sucks." And I go to Dennis Millette. I'm like, "Yeah, sorry, we're not in it, so we don't need your van." but thanks. And then couple days later, I'm in class. Would Mark Lucier come to the office? There's a phone call. And I'm like, "Who's calling me at school?"
Right.
Okay, so I go there thinking it's my mom or my dad. And I go down there and it's this woman. She goes, "Hi, I'm so-and-so from Guelph." I'm like, "Yeah." She said, "Well, we had a team drop out for a volleyball team. And the next 10 teams on the list are all from Guelph. And I remember talking to you and the enthusiasm they had. And I thought this would mean a lot more to you. So if you want in, you're in." I was like,
amazing.
"Yeah,
It was amazing. Dude,
and
that was like
"Okay,
found money when you told me that.
I'm like, "Oh
yeah.
my God."
Like,
Again,
are you kidding me? We were so happy. I remember in the hallway celebrating when you were telling me. just so excited that this is on now. And I didn't even know what to expect. Like, if I had known what was about to happen, I would have been way more excited. But at the time, I was like,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
going on a vol. I just thought it was a volleyball tournament where it turned into just a whole fun adventure for all of us.
Yeah, like
And
you
so
said, like
much
a
fun, just
coming of
laugh.
age story.
Yes, laugh and fun and, just enjoy our time with friends, and just up to no good. Um,
Yeah.
and like clean fun, not anything malicious, but just what a great time. Yeah.
Yeah, I will never forget that. And then we went back the next year, which was very different because it was different
Wait, plus we
people.
won the thing, didn't we? Or what did we come in second or
We
something? What
came in
happened?
second.
We lost in the final. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's when I remember two moments in my life where I made like double down commitments on volleyball. One when I was a child in elementary
Okay.
school, and I was like, I could play this sport forever. I remember just being in awe of the way, the ball was suspended and how we could do it. It took skill to get up in the air. How amazing it was when you can get three touches, and just learning the sport was fantastic. I was like, this is amazing. And
Okay.
then that moment on the court when it all came together for me. That was the first time that I felt like I could dominate at this sport. Wasn't particularly good. That was still the first year that I had played, right? And I wasn't a standout on the team in the first year, and I was
Did
still
you play in
learning.
juniors?
I never played. I didn't play at all in high school till grade 11. No, and
Oh
it's
wow.
gym class. Like I didn't know there was a thing. I never got invited to play, and I played football and track and field in grade 10. But I didn't know that I could play volleyball, let alone be good at it. I just liked it, and I was like, I'm in
And
grade
for
11.
people,
I'm like, I'm going
yeah.
out. Like, if they're gonna cut me, they're gonna cut me. But I like this. I'm gonna give it a try. And that I can remember right on the court. You set me, and I just smoked one. Like one of the really good first, like you know, um, quality attacks that I could be proud of because there weren't many up
Right.
until that point. I was still learning. And this one, I was like, I am the shit. Like I could just remember how proud I was of myself. It's just like so full of myself. From then on, I was like, okay, this is it. I'm doing
The
this.
first of many.
Yeah, I was like, I can. I have so much confidence. I was like, it'd been struggles before, and sometimes I had some pretty good results, but this time I just felt in command on the court. We were playing really well. I was playing particularly well for me, and just everyone around me was enjoying it and celebrating me, and so I was like, okay, it's game on here. And so, yeah, again, thanks for reliving all that and sharing all that. So another area that I know that you have a passion for and that you poured yourself into, and that you got a lot of reward out of was your teaching career. And I want you to tell me, why you chose that. Um, some of the your proudest memories of that, some of your experiences of being a teacher. And I remember you had to go away to school for your teacher's college too. So, what
I
what
did.
happened there that made you decide to be a teacher and persevere through 2 years away?
Okay, so it literally started. So my elementary school was tiny. I was in a split class my entire time growing up with the grade above me. So there were maybe, I don't know, 14, 15 kids in my grade and the same in the grade above us. So I was in a 3-4, then a 4-5, then a 5-6, then a 7. And so when I was in grade 5 and 6, I had a teacher. His name was Mr. Clifton. So the thing that I'm going to describe, I don't remember if I was in grade 5 or 6 because I had him for both of those years. But he um, he was a nice guy. He was funny. He coached everything in our school because there were only like two people that coached anything, and so he did everything. Um, he had play money in his class. He called it Ernie's. His name was Ernie Clifton, and he made this little, and they looked really goofy, but they were little green pieces of paper and
That's cool. That's
whatever it said
cool
on
though.
them.
Yeah, I like
And
it.
then, but I remember him teaching science. So this is so clear in my mind. But he was a kind of not a great teacher. Didn't inspire a lot. So in science, he would give you a photocopy of like an article, And every kid was given a red pen and a ruler, and he would read, and he'd go, oh, that's important, underline that. Okay. And then you'd read more and you'd go, yeah, underline that whole paragraph. That's all important. Okay. And then whatever was underlined, that's what you were tested on. That was it. No hands on anything. And one day we were doing a thing about solar energy, and it was describing an experiment. The experiment basically said, get a big piece of wood, put nails across the top, nails across the bottom, get a garden hose, bend it around those nails, spray paint it black, cover it with a garbage bag, and then test the water of a faucet outside, find out what the temperature is, and have that out on a sunny day when you're doing it, and then hook the faucet up to the hose, and then with the sun heating it, test the water when it comes out at the end. And I literally went, hey, sir, that'd be really cool. Can we do that? And he looked at me and he just said, no, you just need to know what would happen if we did it. The sun would heat it and the water would be warmer coming out. And it was like, okay. And I literally thought, this would be fun if you put any effort into your teaching. You know what? I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to do that. I was in grade 5 or 6 that first came to me. And the next time that it happened was in high school. A friend of yours who became a friend of mine named Ron Spratt. So people are going to think,
another family of all boys, by the way. But Ron, Rick, and Randy Spratt.
Yeah. Oh my God. But when we were in high school, there was no such thing as computers. They had just come out. Literally when I was in grade 9, the Commodore PET computer, which had no hard drive. You loaded programs onto the computer using a cassette tape.
Yeah.
And we were learning to program in a program called BASIC. And I was able to just pick up on this stuff so quickly. And I was learning it faster than the teacher could learn it. So he would be like, okay, here's one statement. This is how you format it. You type this and this and this, and this is what it does. I'm like, okay, cool. What else can we do? No, he's like, no, you just got to learn that first. It's like, okay, I got it. I understand. What next? Well, I'll teach you something later. It's like, what the hell? Okay.
Right.
And then he would teach us, oh, here's something called a conditional loop. It's called an if-then statement. It's like, okay. And he taught that, and it was like, oh my God, cool. So if you have that, you can do this, you can do it. And now I'm programming, making my own little programs for random miscellaneous stuff, just experimenting.
I almost forgot how much we enjoyed that together. Yeah, I almost forgot. You and I just love that too. That's another thing we really connected on, was just our love for computers. And we sat in that computer lab too for hours doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I remember you programming in the Monty Python thing. Do you remember that, the Holy Grail? You were trying to make a
game. We were so Holy Grail focused too. That was a great time for comedy in my life too, to fall in love with comedy. And somebody had made a little Pac-Man knockoff game that I was tinkering around with too at the time. Yeah.
Yeah, that was amazing. And we were so far ahead of the curve. And so anyway, so I'm doing it.
Computer whiz. Computer whiz.
And I'm figuring out how to do this stuff, and Ron is failing the class. And we were just talking in the calf one day, and he's like, I don't understand this stuff. And I'm like, what is it about it you don't understand? Like, dude, it's easy. Like, what don't you get? And he started explaining something. I was like, okay, look, let me just show you. This. You understand that? Yeah. Okay, so this. Do you follow? Yeah. Okay, then this. That's it. And he looked at me and he went, why doesn't the teacher explain it like that? You make it so easy to understand. I was like, I don't know, just that's how I saw it. That's just what I would do. And he was like, yeah, you're a fantastic teacher. Well, thanks. And then he ended up getting an A in the class. And then afterward, and so as the course went on, he would come to me periodically and be like, okay, what's this? If then else. Now, how does that work? And how, if it's there, what happens with this? And I'm confused, and I'm breaking it down, explaining stuff to him. And so again, when he was just like, man, you explain this so simply. Like, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I was like, teaching, yeah, that'd be kind of cool. I could teach. That'd be kind of cool. And then because it was all new at the time, I thought, you know what? I want to be a high school computer teacher. That's what I want to do. I want to do this because I love computers. I love learning it, programming it from scratch, and like all the fun that you and I had. And the thing that you mentioned about computer whiz, again, like this is before Microsoft was ever a thing. You and I were talking about creating programs that would have databases for the home movie rental business. The one right near Todd's house, Aladdin, I think it was called.
Yeah.
And we went in and we were like, hey,
Yeah.
we could make a program that would allow you to keep track of all your videos. You would know who has them, when they're due. You can print stuff out. We could format these things. And he was like, oh, computer whiz. And he was excited about the idea, but then he never got back to us. Probably because we were
we
just
didn't know we didn't know what to do with that, right? It was today I know exactly how to stay in touch, and that's learned, right? That was just we were cutting our teeth. We thought
yeah.
life would come at us really easy, but you got to stick to it. And that was the lesson that I took away from that experience was good ideas are only half the battle, right? You got to get people to act.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what made me think, okay, high school computer teacher. Okay, cool. And you and I ended up both going into computers at the University of Windsor. And again, like maybe I should have known this, but for sure guidance teachers should have told us. All that they said was, okay, to get into that program as prerequisites, you have to take calculus, functions and relations, and algebra.
Right.
You need those. Right. And it's like, okay,
yeah.
I hated them and I did them. And then we get into computer science and it's like, okay, you must take functions and relations, calculus, algebra, some other math class. I don't even remember what the hell it was. And one computer class.
First order logic. Well-formed formulas in first order logic was the name of it. I still remember. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that
And I had the same experience with the university, just quite let down by that whole program. They had old technology. They didn't teach us what the things that we wanted to learn, which was creating and implementing computer software and systems. They taught us how to create computers basically by making us memorize, mathematics. And so I think, I think we just were sold a bill of goods or we misunderstood. And then it was too late by the time that we both figured it out. We're like, this is year 2 and this isn't what we wanted. And I'm playing volleyball and it was all a confusing mess of, priorities out of whack for me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I literally thought those maths were just like my ticket in the door to now learn about computers.
Right.
Like,
That showed that
this,
I had the capability to understand, complex logic, right?
Yeah. And then when it was like, oh no, every year you're gonna be taking these same math courses. But when you finish, you will have a double major. You'll have a major in math and computer science. I was like, that's not what I want. And these books behind me, these three. So the Dragonlance are some Dungeons and Dragons fantasy novels that
we read at the time instead of studying.
Yeah, and I was so checked out of those math classes. And I remember I would go in and I would have my novel and I'd read and you would take notes. The next day, I would take notes and you would be reading the novel. And after a few weeks, I remember taking notes and going, the hell is this? Like, this makes no sense. And you literally just look up from your novel and you're like, we'll figure it out later. Just copy it down. I'm like,
We'll pull an
okay.
all-nighter.
And that's what we did the night before the exam. It was like, okay, I've got January 3rd. It says Wednesday. There should be a Friday. And you did that. Okay, there's the Friday. And we compiled all of our
Trying to
notes.
put together one
And
set of notes from
in
two
and in
people.
one
Yeah,
night, we tried to learn the entire freaking calculus
yeah.
program. And then the same for algebra. And we literally had, I remember I had my big mug that my dad wanted to kill me for.
Tea.
The So a carafe, like the old coffee, like Tim Hortons has, right? Yeah. Put a big carafe, it holds like 12 cups of coffee in it. I would take that, put in 2 tea bags, and I'd be like, okay, so that's 12 cups. I put 2 sugar in my tea. So I need 24 spoonfuls of sugar in this big carafe. 1, 2, 3, 4. Stir it up, and I would drink that entire freaking
That is
thing
the
over the night.
nastiest stuff. I know. I was watching you do that, thinking, I don't want anything to do with that.
And then my dad one day, I'm doing it at my house. But what he didn't see me do was at one point, I'm like, okay, how much is 24 spoonfuls of sugar that are kind of semi heaping? So I just got out a measuring thing and just did that much into a measuring thing, kind of leveled it out. And I was like, okay, it's like a half of a cup of sugar, basically. So my dad comes in the kitchen one day and I've got water boiling in that thing, my 2 tea bags. He sees me put like a measuring cup, bag of sugar, just boosh. And my dad's like, what the hell are you doing?
I bet Gene
You're
was
gonna
not
kill
impressed.
yourself with all that sugar. I'm like, no, Dad, it's all ratios. It's all good.
It's ratios. I'm in mathematics, advanced mathematics. I know my ratios.
Dad, I know what I'm doing here. I went to university.
That's right. College grad here.
Oh, like in hindsight, yeah, I totally get it. You'd look at your kid, what the hell are you doing? You don't, one person doesn't eat that much sugar one sitting. What are you doing? But to me, I was just like, okay, I'm just drinking a lot of tea all in one sitting. Anyways, yeah, so then that was our computer stuff. And then I was like, I'm done. I'm not teaching computer science to anybody. I'm dropping out of this freaking program. It absolutely sucks. And at this point, I was dating Susan Hirota. She was in psychology. Her dad was a psych prof at the university. And I was taking an intro psych class with her. And one day we're out in front of the library and I was like, I'm done. I'm dropping out of university. I'm not coming back. I hate it here. I want nothing to do with this place. And because she knew how things worked, thank God, she said, well, don't just leave. I've got a class, go to the registrars, get what's called a voluntary withdrawal. And then if you choose to come back at some point, you won't have a bunch of failures on your transcript. It'll just be that you withdrew. And I was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. So she goes to class. I go to the registrars, tell them what I want to do. They say, well, you need to talk to a guidance counselor. I'm like, I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm done. Like, they're like, no, that's part of our process. It's right over there near the library. Go over there and there should be someone. I'm like, okay. So I go in there, sit down, talk with somebody. And he's like, so what are you here for? And I said, well, I wanted to teach computer science to high school kids, but I had to take a ton of maths and I absolutely hate math and I'm done. I'm failing. I don't like it. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to withdraw. And I was told I can't withdraw without talking to you. So I'm here. So he pulled up all of my stuff on his antiquated computer. Literally, it was the green text on the black background, just like you see in old movies. And he's like, okay, so I see here you're taking an introductory psychology class. What do you think about that? I was like, it's all right. He was like, instead of teaching high school, what do you think about teaching grade school? I was like, Yeah, I could teach grade school. I'd be willing to do that. Because in my head, I'm thinking I could teach them computer stuff too and whatever. Sure. And they said, well, if I switch you to psychology, all of your math classes and computer class will fill all the options you need from a psychology degree. So none of them will go to the waste. The only thing is, from this point on, every course you take has to be basically a psychology class. You don't have room for picking other options. I was like, so if I get a psychology degree, I can teach grade school. He was like, yeah. I thought that was bizarre because I'm thinking, again, as just a naive kid, I assumed you have to get a degree, like a degree in geography or history or math or language, or like the things that you teach. So he was like, no, you don't have to. This will do it. I was like, okay. He said, okay, so I'm going to switch your major to psychology. Let me do that right now. So he did that on the computer. He was like, okay, you're good. I was like, okay. So I went. Now I dropped out of the math classes that I was failing horribly. Got switched over and just had to make up those courses later on. But then Sue came out of her class and she was like, well, what happened? I was like, well, I changed my major. I'm now in psychology with you. And she's like, what? What are you talking about? You're going to drop out. I was like, yeah, well, and I explained everything to her and she was like, oh, okay. And then with her help, I actually studied because she was like a straight A student, hardworking. So just being with her and
Right. Yeah.
studying,
You
reading the
enjoyed being with
textbook,
her and you wanted to do well
taking
with
notes.
her. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So she was the first person that taught me that if you actually read the textbook, the part that they tell you to do, and make notes on it, and then look that over before the test, you'll do well. So I went from being like maybe a C student in university in all the math stuff to like straight A's and A pluses. So when I then applied to faculties of education, I just didn't know any better, but people said, oh, you can only apply to 3 places in Ontario, 3 universities. I was like, okay, so I applied to 3. And they all told me no, because in Ontario, they look at your entire 30 courses, 10 per semester for 3 years. And I had a bunch of really crappy grades. So they were like, no, nice try. Then someone said, oh, no, you can only apply to 3 in Ontario, but you can apply to as many as you want outside of the province. I was like, well, why didn't anyone tell me that? So I was like, okay. And people were saying, oh, Brandon, Manitoba, I know people that have gotten in there. You can apply to here and there. So I'm like, okay. So I applied to probably at least 10 places outside of Ontario. And they were all coming back. Oh, and by this point, I was doing computer programming for the city of Windsor. I was hired to do that, which was really cool.
Right. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, for their social services department. Dude, and again, I was so far ahead of the curve for them. I made programs that saved them so much work and so many hours to do the same job. Crazy. I was crazy. But so I was working there and they wanted to hire me full time. And I was like, no, I just got to find out, because if I get accepted, I'm not going to be here. So I'll let you know when I find out. And I'm getting rejection letter after rejection letter after rejection letter. I'm like, damn it. And then I got my final letter from the University of Calgary. And I remember I went home at lunchtime and held the envelope. I'm like, well, this is my future. Opened it and peeked, and it said, like, dear Mark Lucier, we are pleased to inform you. And I just stopped. Most of them were like, oh, we appreciate your interest in our program, blah, 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 blah. However, right. So this one, I'm like, we are pleased to inform you. And I just stopped. I'm like, the hell can they be saying if it's not a yes? How would you use that to say no? And I'm like, I don't know. Okay, let me read the rest. And it was, we pleased to inform you you've been accepted to our program. And I was like, oh my God. And I was literally jumping with joy. Just with joy. Oh my God. And I was hyped. And I went to work in the afternoon. I told them, okay, so I'm doing this. So I'm only going to be able to work until this time because their school starts in September. So I worked right till the bitter end. And then I left just a couple weeks before school started because I had to drive out, find a place to stay. And that was my first time, how you were saying our Guelph was your first time out on your own without your parents. This was the first time I ever left home to live. So drive out there with Sue. Found a roommate. He had posted his room on the campus. And then he forgot about it apparently. And I called him and I was like, you're looking for a roommate? He was like, pardon me? I was like, I'm at the University of Calgary and you're looking for a roommate? No. He was like, oh, yeah. Are you interested? I was like, yeah. When can you come by? I can come by now. Okay, yeah, come on by. Okay. So he had posted it months before, but it was 2 months where it was the summertime and no kids there looking for a place to stay. So he had given up and he had told the landlord that he was moving out. So he had already mentally checked out. So when I called to say I want to, he was like, what are you talking about? So make long story short, I ended up living with him, had a great time. I lived there for 2 years, got my teaching degree. And I went from being like I said, like a C student to graduating with distinction from the University of Calgary.
Yeah, good for
Just
you.
because
Congratulations.
oh, thanks. Because I
Doing
now had a
something you
work
like.
ethic that
Yeah.
Sue taught me. I was doing something that I liked, that I knew, well,
Yeah.
this is going to apply to my life. So I need to learn this stuff. If I'm going to be a teacher, I need to know all the stuff that they're telling me. So I saw a purpose to it. Whereas like doing dot matrices of algebra, Cartesian plane, this, that, it's like, when am I going to need any of this stuff?
Yeah, find
But
the
teach you,
volume
teach
of
stuff.
a cylinder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that. I saw where it could be applied. So I wanted to do well and I did. So that's how I ended up becoming a teacher. And I was an elementary teacher. I came back to London. So lived in Windsor my whole life, Calgary for 2 years. Sue had now gone on to law school and she knew she would be doing her what they call articling, kind of like student teaching, but for lawyers in London. So it was like, okay, well, if she's doing that next year, I'm just going to go to London. So I went to London. I supply taught there for 2 years while she articled in the second year. And then the third year, she wrote her bar ads, which are the exams for lawyers. And I supply taught that year. And then she got hired in Windsor by a law firm. So we moved back home to Windsor. And then I got hired immediately with the Windsor Public School Board, the Greater Essex County District School Board, sorry. And I got 2 days of supply teaching, and then I got a long term that went from October 4th to the end of the year.
Awesome.
I was hired full time the next year.
Yeah.
And I ended up teaching for 28 years.
Wow.
And loved all of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved my career.
Yeah, I remember seeing your classrooms, and I can't remember the context of when I visited a classroom that you had, but it looked like a science fair. Tell me about all the stuff you had going on in there. Tell me what it was like being in Mark Lucier's classroom.
Well, another thing that I made a mental note of was some teachers. So I'm just plugging my charger back in here. My laptop showed me this thing, the low battery. So that teacher that put no effort into it, I did the exact opposite. I made things hands-on as much as possible. I used humor in the classroom. I was laughing with kids, joking with kids nonstop. I would take them outside when I was going to read them a book just to break the routine. Ernie Clifton with his Ernies, I loved Looney Tunes. And so my whole classroom stuff was set up with Looney Tunes stuff. I made my own Looney Tunes money. I had a $1 bill, a 2, a 5,
Lucier
a 10.
tunes? You didn't call them Lucier tunes or Lucier tunes?
No, and there's some in the other room too. I should have thought to grab some. That would have been funny. Yeah, and so I had this currency,
You can do it
and
between takes. You can do it between takes. Show us
maybe
something.
I'll send you a picture. So kids could earn money by when I give you a test and you have to bring it home and get it signed and brought back. If you do that the next day, you get $2. If you do it the following day, you get $1. You do it on the third day, you break even. After that, you owe me $1 for every day it's late. And even though it's play money, kids do not want to lose money.
I bet. I
So,
bet.
in terms of classroom organization and management, I never, like, teachers would be like, oh my God, I'm still waiting for these field trip forms to come in. I'm like, I had all mine the next day, all of them.
Right. Right.
And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
it was like that for everything.
I bet.
And I would make math
Dude, that's a
sheets.
great idea. I would have sold that. If I was a peer of yours, I would have been like, I'm having my own now. You onto it. Like I'm a big copycat of good behavior or things at work, and I can't believe no one else implemented that. If it's working, I'm like, we're doing it.
Yeah. So, so the very first class that I had for that long-term placement was in an open concept school, which was not good. First, my voice is very loud and it carries. So just me talking to the kids, if I got excited at all, I'm now disturbing 6 other classes. So that was very challenging for me. The class that I inherited was a grade 2 class that literally sent their teacher around the bend. She went off on a stress leave. There was one little kid, his name was Andrew, small, tiny, skinny kid. He would just leave. She would turn, write something on the board, and because there were no walls at the back or the sides, he'd just run. And he's now through the library into the music area, whatever. And she just couldn't handle it, along with a couple other kids in the class. So when I got there on October 4th at principal, he basically said to me, okay, assume that she taught nothing and just start fresh from the very beginning of the curriculum and just try to get through it quickly and try and get it all done. I was like, okay. And in the class, I would, like on a math sheet, for example, I would do a watermark, which I learned how to do in Microsoft Word way back when. I would have a big image from like a still from a Looney Tunes cartoon. It might be Bugs Bunny, it might be Daffy Duck, it might be Elmer Fudd, like whoever. And just having that stupid image behind questions motivated kids to do it. And even where it would have name, I'd have a
Yeah,
little tiny
genius.
picture about that
Yeah.
big of Bugs Bunny or whatever at the end of the line. And then I didn't have problems with kids not signing their name because they'd be like, oh, who did you put this time? Oh, hey, oh, well, while I'm here, let me sign this.
Well, that sure is fun listening to Mark Lucier. Now you know why he's one of my favorite people. I want to thank you for joining us here in part 1 and invite you to come back and watch part 2 as we learn more about Mark's teaching career and the rest of his life to this day. Thanks for listening. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. And a reminder, if you or someone you know would like help developing your legacy plan or would like to tell your story on this podcast, email us at legacycurious@gmail.com. I'm your host, David Gravelle. Everyone has a story. Let's make sure yours is heard and remembered.